Welcome to the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Paragraph 39 through 43. How can we speak about God? Paragraph 39. In defending the ability of human reason to know God, the Church is expressing her confidence in the possibility of speaking about Him to all men and with all men, and therefore of dialogue with other religions, with philosophy and science, as well as with unbelievers and atheists. Paragraph 40. Since our knowledge of God is limited, our language about Him is equally so. We can name God only by taking creatures as our starting point, and in accordance with our limited human ways of knowing and thinking. Paragraph 41. All creatures bear a certain resemblance to God, most especially man, created in the image and likeness of God. The manifold perfections of creatures, their truth, their goodness, their beauty, all reflect the infinite perfection of God. Consequently, we can name God by taking His creatures' perfections as our starting point. For from the greatness and beauty of created things comes a corresponding perception of their Creator. Paragraph 42. God transcends all creatures. We must therefore continually purify our language of everything in it that is limited, image-bound, or imperfect, if we are not to confuse our image of God, the inexpressible, the incomprehensible, the invisible, the ungraspable, with our human representations. Our human words always fall short of the mystery of God. Paragraph 43. Admittedly, in speaking about God like this, our language is using human modes of expression. Nevertheless, it really does attain to God Himself, though unable to express Him in His infinite simplicity. Likewise, we must recall that between Creator and creature, no similitude can be expressed without implying an even greater dissimilitude, and that concerned God. We cannot grasp what He is, but only what He is not, and how other beings stand in relation to Him. Reflection. In paragraph 39, it says, in defending the ability of human reason to know God, the Church expresses confidence that we can come to know God by speaking about Him to other people. We can use a dialogue, a language, to talk about Him to other faiths, other religions, and even atheists. And we can do that because we all can come to know God in the human spirit and in the physical world, because God placed that into us because we are creating His image. So we can come to know God, and we can use that as a springboard to share Him with other people. And as Christians, we're called to do that. In paragraph 40, it says that our knowledge of God is limited, and it always will be. And because our knowledge of God is limited, our language also is going to be limited. Our language pales in comparison to who God is in His entirety. And our starting point is really coming to know God through His creatures. Much like coming to know an artist through the painting that he paints. We can name God only by taking creatures as our starting point. As limited as that is, that can be our starting point. And in paragraph 41, it says all creatures bear a certain resemblance to God. So everything that God's created points to Him. And so because it points to Him, we can use that as a springboard to understand who God is. And we start by looking at the creature's perfections. And that's where we start. We start by taking His creature's perfections as our starting point. We're coming to understand God's beauty and His greatness. And even still, that fails in comparison to the magnitude of who God is. But it comes and it helps us to understand at least a little bit. And that the human person, more than any other creature, speaks of who God is. We resemble God more than any other creation He's made. So that is the pinnacle of where we can start in helping ourselves understand who God is and helping other people know who He is. In paragraph 42, we see how God is infinitely beyond His creatures, that this invisible God can only, He can't really be totally conceived. He's always going to be a mystery in some capacity because our language is limited. And the danger is that we put Him in a box. It's wonderful when we seek the Lord to maybe look at a picture and pray. We may have some idea of who God is. And it's important that as we do that, as we use our five senses to draw us to God, that we understand that He is more beyond that than He is that. And that leads us to paragraph 43, when it says that our human modes of expressing who God is really unable to express the infinite simplicity of who He is. That our God, our Creator, has more dissimilarities than He has similarities with us. And that's important to know, because if we're trying to understand Him from how people have treated us, then that's going to limit our ability to understand who He is. For example, it's easy to think that, well, people don't love me, my father didn't love me, my mother didn't love me, so we take that and say, well, then God doesn't love me. Or, how can anyone love me? How awful I am. Look at all that I've done. God is beyond our human understanding. He transcends that. And so He's more dissimilar to us than similar. So we know from the scriptures who He is, but His mercy and His love is even more beyond all of that. So to take Him out of the box and know that all things are possible with Him, that is our starting point. And we do the best that we can. We may not get it completely, but we just pray that the Lord continue to reveal Himself. And that really is the key, is constant praying to the Lord to reveal Himself. And that's, I think, the reason that the Lord allows us not to have everything written out for us, and that He is infinitely more mysterious than He is knowable, because that mystery in itself gives us a capacity to want to draw close to Him, to understand Him, to search for Him. And the more we search for Him, we will find Him. If you like what you've been listening to, then I encourage you to subscribe down below. I will see you at the next catechism. God bless you.